to you from my heart. Tomorrow will be June the 6th, and it will be the anniversary of the Allied invasion of Normandy in 1944, the Allies' push into occupied France to liberate Europe from Nazism and Fascism. On that fateful morning of June the 6th, the largest naval armada in maritime history, enough ships that if they were lined up tip to tip, stern to stern, you could walk from ship to ship from the shores of Normandy to the docks of England.
That's right.
Wow.
Yep.
That's how many ships. As the Navy bombarded the beachheads, sprinkled out among all the battleships and cruisers was, of course, the troop ships. Amongst those hundreds of ships that were gathered off the shores of Normandy was one in particular, the USS Bayfield, a troop carrier. All of the troops that were awaiting the order to start climbing over the netting and to lower themselves into the Higgins boats, those landing crafts that were made in New Orleans. There's one right there. Eisenhower, General Eisenhower said after the war that if it wasn't for the Higgins boats, we never would have won the war. Mr. Higgins was a well-known boat builder in New Orleans who built fishing boats and pleasure crafts, but he converted all of his factories into creating these landing launch boats called Higgins boats. He was the first and he did something that was unheard of in that day, in that he had an open workshop. In other words, he hired people of every color, paid all of them the same wages, and treated every employee, no matter the color of their skin, with the utmost dignity and respect. They were waiting. They were in fear. And in reading this, and Stephen Ambrose's book on that great invasion, he said this about these soldiers. He said the fear was palatable. You could see it in their eyes. You didn't have to speak it. He said you literally could feel the fear. But he said it was not a fear of dying. It was a fear of will I let my comrades down? Will I be able to do what I'm supposed to do? They watched as the cannons and the battleships, the guns roared, the ground would literally shake, and you could feel the vibration all the way to the ships. Down in the bows of the USS Bayfield was a general who began to make his way up to the deck. He was not supposed to be there. He had been in serious health problems and actually in the hospital in England. His back was in terrible shape. The pain and agony, couldn't walk without a cane. Matter of fact, before they boarded the ships to leave, and he was in the hospital, General Eisenhower sent another general to his room to tell him that Eisenhower was not going to allow him to take part in the invasion, partly because of his physical condition, but mainly because of who he was. He was General Theodore Roosevelt, Jr., the son of the former President Teddy Roosevelt. He was a frail man. He had a heart condition. There he is right there. But he looked at that man, and Eisenhower was afraid that if Roosevelt was killed, that it would be it would hurt the morale of America. But Theodore Roosevelt, Jr., in pain, laying in that bed, looked up at that general and said, "You will have to arrest me and court-martial me. I will be on my ship. I will be with my men, and I will lead them into battle. So you either arrest me and put me in the brig or shut up and get out of the way. I'm getting up. I'm getting dressed." In pain, physical pain, he made his way up from the bows of the USS Bayfield. He mingled in with the troops. He never spoke to them, didn't say anything to them. But he worked his way through the crowds of the troops that were overlooking the bombardment of the beachhead that they would be storming, and he just stood there among his troops. And all of a sudden, General Theodore Roosevelt began to sing. And this is Stephen Ambrose recorded this. This is where I got it from in his book on the invasion of D-Day. He just started singing, "Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. He is trampling out the vintage where the grapes of wrath are stored. He has loosed his fateful lightning of his terrible swift sword. His truth is marching on." When he got to the chorus, you know it, glory, glory, hallelujah, glory, glory, hallelujah, glory, glory, hallelujah, his truth is marching on. And all of a sudden, the men around him begin to sing with him. "I have seen him in the watchfires of 100 circling camps. They have builded him an altar in the evening dews and damps. I can read his righteous sentence by the dim and flaring lamps. His day is marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah." And Stephen Ambrose said, before you knew it, there was a choir.
Yes.
As those young men, the average age was 19 and a half, began to sing, and they got through to this verse, and they began to lift their voices as a choir. "In the beauty of the lilies, Christ was born across the sea, with a glory in his bosom that transfigures you and me. As he died to make men holy, let us live to make men free, while God is marching on." Yes. The ship gave the signal. The men climbed over the nets, led by General Roosevelt, who carried no weapon. He only carried a cane in battle. They stormed the beaches, and they were immediately cut down. The hours of bombing did nothing to take out the bunkers. They were so powerful and strong. Erwin Rommel had built them. Erwin Rommel had sighted the whole beach, and so the machine guns, mortars, everything was targeted perfectly. And in that horrible agony, it said, Stephen Ambrose said that when the front lift of that Higgins boat would fall, that the machine gun fire, and some of them killed every single man in the Higgins boats, and not one was able to get off. Others in the back, in some Higgins boats, as men were being killed, jumped over the side, and because they were wearing so much gear, drowned. And the men were bottled up. No one was making a push. And then in the midst of that horror, General Theodore Roosevelt, calmly, coolly, with bullets flying around him, began to walk to his soldiers, put his hand on his shoulder. Move forward, lad. Son, you can't stay on the beach. You'll die. Let's go. Let's go. And he began to rally the men. And his courage gave courage to young men who had never fired a shot at anyone in anger. And they began to take the beach. A few days later, in another battle, General Theodore Roosevelt suffered a heart attack and died. He was awarded the Medal of Honor for his courage on landing on June the 6th, 1944. I told you this for this reason. Tomorrow, which is Saturday, take a moment and remember the sacrifices of these young men. Take a moment and realize that everything we have in this nation, the freedoms, is because of their sacrifice. Take a moment tomorrow on June the 6th and think about freedom and the loss of young men in their prime that died not only to preserve our freedom, but to bring freedom where Nazism ruled. They tell us that within the next 10 years, there will be no more World War II veterans alive. No more. They were our greatest generation. And I just want to say thank you to the veterans out there of whatever war that you may have fought in. Thank you. And may we never forget June the 6th, 1944. Thank you.
Donnie, thank you.